Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Blended Learning Grant webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started here in a little bit, let everyone get a chance to join. So hang tight for a second and we'll be starting here in a second. All right, Mike, I think participation numbers are starting to steady out. You want to go ahead and kick us off?
All right, happy to do it. Welcome, everyone. This is the Blended Learning Grant webinar for the LASO Grant Learning Acceleration Support and Opportunities. We'll get started with a quick round of introductions. My name is Michael Strange. I'm the Blended Learning Program Manager. And then Brian, will let you introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Doran. I'm the Director of Expanded Learning Models here at TEA, so on the Blended Learning team.
So agenda and FYIs for today's webinar. Quick welcome introductions. We'll go over the timeline for the application process for LASO. We'll dive deep into the Blended Learning Grant, specifically the description, eligibility, commitments on your end, as well as how the scoring criteria will be laid out and any allowable expenditures if a grant is awarded to your district. And then, of course, next steps and Q&A in there. A few FYIs, please ask questions and drop them into that question and answer box on Zoom. And then this recording and slides will be posted on the LASO website at the end of this week, in case you miss anything or you need to be able to share it with someone in your district. All right, so overview for LASO. Based on some lessons learned from T-Class on last year's grant, TEA is attempting to continue offering streamlined and a consolidated grant application. This year it's called LASO. And through LASO, we have approximately $110 million in funding and supports that will be available to districts in Texas. LASO consolidates within 8 different program grant opportunities into one single program application. We're going to dive into that in just a second. And while we've seen a rebound in STAR and RLA results over this last year, we do recognize that there's still some continued growth that needs to occur. And so as a result, again, we're offering another round of supports through LASO and help LEAs continue to make progress towards learning acceleration and academic gains. There's 3 specific strategies that we will look at with LASO. One, instructional materials, where you'll find the Blended Learning Grant in there. More time for students with expanded learning, expanded instructional time, and then innovative school models through the Learning Acceleration Framework. So again, LASO grant is divided into those 3 initiatives. Specifically, what we're going to talk about today under instructional materials is the Blended Learning Grant starting implementation next year. Our application window, I know if you've been to some of the general webinars, you've seen this before, but just want to put that there again for you. And then we do recognize that this is can be a quick turnaround for most districts. And so the unique link will be emailed to superintendents, or has already been emailed to superintendents. And if they're unable to receive that there, when you get access to these slides, there's a form that you can inquire for a new link, as well as a PDF of the application. And just to note, changes, requests, and declines are there. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything in my notes to talk about. And so LASO will be anchored in this informal discretionary competitive grant process, where changes and declines are not advisable. If declines are requested, they will be considered on a case-by-case basis for LEAs. and could raise the LEA's federal grant risk level in the coming year. Okay, so that was just a general overview of the LASO grant overall. And let's talk about this webinar, the Blended Learning Grant Deep Dive. So what we have, again, through instructional materials, and we have just about $9 million that we would like to see between 25 to 50 LEAs be awarded, up to $500,000. And we'll talk more about how all that gets broken down in a bit. And again, this will be starting next school year in both math and or RLA core content for licenses with blended learning products. As far as a deep dive of exactly what you're looking at with blended learning, specifically our description there, we see it in two ways. One with math, where we call that the Math Innovation Zones, or MIZ. And then the other is in reading language arts through a blended RLA. And both of these will be aligned to a TEA Open Education Resource Core Curriculum. And we'll talk more specifically about which ones those are here in a moment. For those districts that are awarded the grant, you'll be able to apply those funds in several different ways. One is a project manager. Knowing, especially if you're a campus that selects, or a district that selects several campuses, this could take up to 50% of his or her time helping those campuses design and implement a blended learning plan. Another is a one-on-one technical assistance. So whether you want some online assistance or curriculum, or sometimes the blended learning in general, the models for them, the implementation, you have vendors for that. And again, you can see those in the approved vendor list on the website, LASO website. And then digital supplemental products. And we'll talk about specifics in a moment, but you will use funds to provide those licenses for your campuses and students to receive that personalized instruction. Additional technology may be necessary as well. And so there's funds there to help with that blended learning model, operational cost for any other programmatic needs, stipends and trainings, etc. And then ultimately, all this is through two different riders, Rider 40 and Rider 76, authorizing these funds for you to use. So let's talk about why blended learning, for those that maybe aren't familiar or just need a refresher. We know that ultimately meeting all the students' needs is a challenge, and it can be very difficult for teachers in a room of 20 to 25 kids or 30 kids or more. And so we see that some are bored, some are going to be lost, some may have an idea of what the content is, and then the teacher is spot on with their pacing and the delivery of the materials. However, being able to diagnose where students are throughout that process can be extremely tough. And so again, some students could be engaged through that process, whereas others may be a little confused where they're at. So ultimately, we want to be able to use blended learning to help differentiate the student pathways, and knowing that this is a complex process. The high quality instructional materials that we'll talk about in a moment will help teachers with the planning piece. The blended learning will help teachers with the delivery of those that core content, and being able to adjust in real time cannot be easy with one teacher in a traditional model. So finding ways to reach all those students. If we don't reach all students and able to differentiate, then we end up just teaching towards the middle. Kids that are ahead find themselves limited. Kids that have gaps find themselves left behind. And we end up just teaching to those students that are in the middle. So finding those better supports for teachers is ultimately where blended learning comes in. And blended learning is just that, a blend of both face-to-face instruction with a teacher in the classroom, as well as some online instruction happening either in the classroom at the same time or at different parts of the class day. Our online instruction, again, giving us quick diagnosis for students of where they're at, differentiation of what they need, and ultimately giving adjustments in real time so they can find those, close those gaps quicker. And then the face-to-face instruction brings all the great things that teachers bring, right? A human flexibility, a love, a relationship that's built, and then that emotional support direction that all students need. So now that we can do that with that blended learning, with the adaptive software, we're able to direct instruction with real-time data and help differentiate those needs for students. Now, as far as the grant logistics and requirements, what we have here, awardees for the blended learning, those participants need to be either in one of two buckets, either in the CRIMSI initiative, which was the COVID response instructional materials initiative, or in last year's T-Class Decision 2 state approved vendor list to implement with a TEA available math or RLA OER products. Again, we'll talk about what those specific products are here in a moment. As far as key commitments from districts, once they are awarded a grant, expectations for them meet all the CRIMSI assurances. And again, when you get access to this is a linkable item here for you to see that if you're not familiar with CRIMSI. Submit items such as a master schedule, assessment calendar, your plan for technology and equipment, and then provide online curriculum specific professional learning for teachers and coaches. And again, that could be in two buckets, either specifically to the adaptive software or specifically to the blended model itself. Project management, again, you'll need a project manager for this. You can use funds to help pay for that if you want, but at least 50% of the time will probably be helped towards implementing a blended learning plan at each campus, as well as there'll be some communities of practice meetings and other guidance that those PMs or project managers will need to run. And lastly, execution deliverables. Teachers, coaches, students will need to be able to complete required trainings up until by the first 90 days of installation, provide performance data to ensure students meet those progress specific weekly student software targets. Again, you'll see those specific ones for each product here in a moment, as well as helping us with research and submitting a blended learning reflection or revision survey at the end of a few times throughout the year. Scoring, how we will prioritize funds for those applicants when they're submitted. The first level, as you can see here, if you look from left to right, you see math on the left side and RLA on the right side. Districts are able to apply for both math and RLA or just one or the other. In either case, here's how they will be prioritized, with level 1 being CRIMSI participants from last year, the year prior, or this year rather, or the year prior, and then RLA, same thing, CRIMSI participants currently this year or the year prior, using those core products. Priority 2, the blended cohorts through CRIMSI, using the products there, or priority 3, the state approved vendor list participants. And then priority 4, the CRIMSI blended cohorts for middle school 6 through 8, using Carnegie Math and Mathia. As far as how that funding will be awarded, they'll be ranked by their priority levels. In case there's a tie, we'll match economically disadvantaged numbers and rank percentage of K-8 student population participating that are in the blended learning grant across the entire district or LAA. If the LAA is applying for both, prioritization levels for math and RLA will be considered independently, so no extra points for applying for both. However, the awards will be different. Maximizing award would be $400,000 for either math or RLA. It could be $500,000 if that district or LEA is awarded for both math and the RLA grant. There will be no interviews conducted for this grant. Again, I'm talking about how those funds, when awarded, can be used across the district. We mentioned this a little bit earlier, but more specifically, the online curriculum implementation. So whether that be your product or some sort of blended product, design and implementation support, especially how to blend both the adaptive software with that tier 1 instruction. The blended learning license and aligned support. Again, that includes not only the license for students, but also any professional development support for teachers and coaches that are necessary to onboarding them. Personnel to help, such as that program manager, that will be helpful to run the grant. And then last but not least, additional implementation supports that might be necessary for this high quality blended learning grant. Now, specifically, what is it that the expectations as far as metrics from students and the campus for math or MIZ, Math Innovation Zones? You're looking at 2 options. One, elementary K through 5 is Eureka Math. That is the high quality instructional material or OER product that we mentioned earlier. There are 2 adaptive software products to choose from, either Zern or ST Math. And you can see the student usage targets there expected for each. And then for middle school, it is the Carnegie Texas Math Solutions for 6th through 8th core curriculum. For the adaptive software, it is Mathia that is aligned to Carnegie and their student usage target there. That is the math section. As far as RLA, oh, we had that skipped. Let me refresh that so we can get that on there. 1 second. Unhide slide. There we go. Let me refresh this one. Let's try that one more time. All right. Sorry about that, folks. We'll get us going here. It'll be perfect on Thursday when we do it again. Oh, it skipped it again. All right, I'm going to do this here. We're just going to show it and then I'll come back to it, Brian. Apologies on that. Okay, RLA, you can see it there. It's Amplify Texas. This is the K5 option. Amplify Reading. You have 3 options here. Amplify Reading. There's 2 different targets for that one. K3, 30 minutes per week. 4-5, 40 minutes per week. iReady, we're still in process of finding quality usage targets for them. So we'll make that available to you here soon. And then Amira, which is 2 sessions per week or approximately 40 minutes per week.
And then one thing to highlight here, folks, is that these products are what we consider provisionally eligible right now. And so they are still undergoing a full content review, which will be anticipated to be done by the time that grants get to the NOGA status. So provisionally eligible. Just wanted to flag that just to be safe.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. Oh, gracious. I'm sorry, folks. All right. You are well versed in blended learning now, as we've gone through the slides now for a 3rd time. There we are. All right. As far as your timeline, once the NOGA is given around the spring of next year through that LASO process, then what you can expect for the duration of the grant, the summer and fall coming up next year will be treated as your planning stage, or kind of like your pilot time to go through and work out the details of which grade levels you want to apply it to for that first year, and onboarding teachers, getting licensed to students, all those things. So you'll use the fall of next year to go through that, and then we'll have our execution period where we'll start collecting those actual student usage targets and metrics and other things in the spring of next year. You'll start that with 3 grade levels between your K8 and using your high quality instructional material. The next year we'll add 3 more grade levels And then the fall of 24, spring of 25, that third year will fully participate K through 8, fulfilling all your execution requirements. And then you'll notice here, there's a gap for that last year where the funding period ends and the execution period continues. This is our sustainability year, where your funds have ended as far as licenses and implementation supports. And now it's for the district to show how they can sustain blended learning through their campuses that participated for that last year. The last thing we'll note, and we'll talk more in depth here in a second, is for the MIZ, the math only, you can achieve a designated MIZ status at each of those fully fleshed out years of execution period. What that means for you is here, and this is actually directly from the commissioner in his notes in here, that highlighted part there at the bottom. Those campuses that are designated as MIZ each year will not be subject to interventions under state accountability systems. And those first 2 years of designation, provided that the campus is implementing the instructional program with fidelity and complies with all the MIZ requirements to satisfaction. So that's a wonderful thing for campuses. Not only are we able to implement blended learning and help students that way through delivery of content, but also there's that extra benefit to the district itself, not just to that campus, but to the entire district on helping with those that are the accountability system. All right, so as far as the actual application and things that are necessary, if you've been in some of these webinars with other ones, it's the same that applies here. And you will need the superintendent's signature. And this one, if you're unable to do that, please email LASO there. Office hours for us, I know that they will have the actual registration on the LASO website, so you can go there, but our dates for office hours are down there at the bottom. Next Monday, or Monday after Thanksgiving, the 28th, from 1 to 2, and then that following Monday, December 5th, from 1 to 2 on there. And a few things that you may use office hours for, you can see the examples there as far as like the application itself, issues or questions that you might have before you finish up that process. So as we wrap up, next steps and points of contact, if you have questions directly with the application, feel free to email blendedlearning@tea.texas.gov or the LASO email as well. Again, next steps for you: reviewing the webpage, going through those assurances and program guidance. You can go back to the general FAQ. We will update that based on the Q&A from today's webinar by Tuesday, November 22nd. And then again, if you have any of those questions with how to apply or things that are necessary being asked in the Qualtrics survey, feel free to join those office hours after Thanksgiving, November 28th or December 5th. Both of those are from 1 to 2. All right, I think that is it on our end. Brian, anything else to add?
I don't think so. We've been getting some good questions here in the chat that I've been answering. Let's see here. So registration for office hours, I believe that's going to be on the LASO website.
Correct.
So I take a look at the LASO website. It might actually already be up there. The HQM selections are not, the math selections are on the LASO website, as in they are on the program guidelines. But the RLA selections will not be up there yet. We will be posting this slide deck later this week, and so I would say look at the LASO webpage again by end of week, and we'll have this deck posted, which is where you'll be able to find the HQM selections. A couple questions that came in about grade levels. So one good question about, hey, what's the product for middle school RLA? We don't actually have an approved product for middle school RLA. So on the RLA side of things, this is really a K through 5 initiative. And then also flagging that there are no materials for grades 9 through 12. Is this grant not an option for high schools? That's correct. This is a K8 on the math side and K5 on the RLA side.
I'll answer that one there.
On the current MIZ schools, we're working on some more official language there for the FAQ. So I encourage you to take a look at the FAQ and at the end of the week when we get that posted. You're certainly eligible for RLA side of things, so the other subject. And then we're working on the guidance for any potential overlap for math, and we'll have that posted by end of week. And then ESCs, if you have for approved providers, that list is an existing list that I think approved a couple years ago. You can reach out to blended learning at tea.texas.gov, and we can explore what options we have available there. How do the strong foundations implementation supports required minutes line up with the required minutes for blended learning? I think the main thing for required minutes for blended learning is we just need to make sure that you have time carved into your schedule to meet those usage targets. So Mike had a slide on the page for both math and RLA, and that, again, this will be posted on the website later this week. But those are the things that we're focused on for blended learning. And that should certainly align with whatever you're doing for tier 1. And so I think, as you're making your decisions about which programs to apply to, it might make sense to do a quick, like, hey, does this make sense with our scheduling components? What do we be able to fit in, for example, 60 minutes of Zern a week alongside our tier 1. So that is a good consideration to flag there. And then a couple of questions that did come in are just clarifying eligibility here. So Mike did cover in order to be eligible for this grant, you will have needed to participate in CRMSI, COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative, or in T-Class Decision 2 State Approved Vendor List. This is because we know that the best implementation of blended learning is in tandem, is in alignment with your tier 1 core curriculum. And so we want to make sure that the planning is being done on both sides. And instead of looping in tier 1 planning and implementation supports into this grant, this is just combining with that work that's already been done on CRMSI and T-Class Decision 2. We certainly have some more time, so if you have any other questions, we can hang out for a little bit longer. Otherwise, if we don't get any coming in for the next little bit, we'll go ahead and sign off. So if you've gotten everything you need, also feel free to drop it at whatever point makes sense for you. Nikki, I think that makes sense. I think the strong foundations is distinct from CRMSI. Unless I'm mistaken there, we can double check on that and make sure that we have that addressed in the FAQs by end of week. So take a look at the FAQs and we'll make sure we get that addressed.
Yeah, then her question about implementation execution would be next year. To those that I'm not sure, it didn't have the name on there, but the question about being new and if you were awarded a T-Class grant, you're welcome to email Blended Learning, email there, and happy to find out. If you just give me your district name and who to contact back, happy to find that out for you.
And then one thing to flag here too is one of the spirits of this program. One of the reasons that we're running this program is to really support folks with the design and implementation, and then the implementation and the actual implementation of blended learning. Knowing that grant funds are grant funds and eventually they do go away, the goal is to work towards sustainability. And so really the spirit of this is not just to go after the MIZ grant year after year, but really to build a sustainable system within your existing district. And so while there may be some overlap there where you have the opportunity to apply again if you've already been an MIZ district, which we'll address in the FAQs later this week, I do want to underscore that, you know, one of the purposes of this grant is to really build long-term sustainability and not have to rely on grant funds long-term. That said, CRMSI and T-Class and T-Class Decision 2 are the two eligibility components for this grant. And so that's kind of the case. And then if there's anything with strong foundations overlap there, we'll clarify that, but those are the two answers right now. If there are any questions or concerns, please reach out to blendedlearning@tea.texas.gov. And also just feel free to take a look at the program guidelines for more detailed written out components. All right, so again, underscoring here. So last year in T-Class, we ran a program called CRMSI. We also had a grant in the previous years, also called CRMSI, that was run previous to T-Class. That alongside the T-Class Decision 2 specifically, Decision 2 State Approved Vendor List, those are the two eligibility components. So encourage you to check with your district if you're not sure if you all participated in that or not. But otherwise, those are the two eligibility components. And again, that's to make sure that we are aligned with Tier 1 planning and implementation.
How are we doing on participants?
All right, I think it's slowing down here, Mike.
No. We have, it looks like we've got 33 participants left. This is last call here. If you have any questions, we'll stay on for about another minute. If not, you know, one feature I wish we had was that if we could see if people were typing in to ask a question, that would be nice. You hate to end something and they were in the middle of a question. Yeah, thank you for putting that in the chat. Yeah, if there's a question we missed or something you think later to ask, please email us there in the chat there, blendedlearning@tea.texas.gov. Happy to answer those questions. And again, we will have another webinar, the exact same one on Thursday. So if there's something you missed and just want to join in, feel free to join in as well. All right, I think that wraps us up then. Thank you, Brian, Alice, everyone else for helping. Thank you, attendees, for joining. And until then, we'll be happy to answer any questions. Hope that you apply.
Thanks.